Welcome in, Dween Nation. This is Dween Sports, your host, Justin Paez, alongside Janoah Agudelo. This is our first ever video podcast, and it's for the Super Bowl. We got the 49ers and the Chiefs, and a one that's going to be wild from the onset. You've seen this week, the interviews, Super Bowl week. It's a big week. Maybe is Brock Purdy going to disappoint Taylor Swift? Is Patrick Mahomes just the villain of the NFL? You'll find out here more. Janoah, say what's up.
Yo, Dween Nation, what is going on? It's good to finally see you guys. Man, we are here with the final two teams just a couple days away from the biggest spectacle of football, Super Bowl 58, live from Allegiant Stadium. Justin, this is going to be incredible. I am so ready for Sunday night.
Yes, sir. We only have a few days. There's still just a lot to cover throughout the last week. We didn't send out an episode last week because we know how big this one is going to be. And it's so exciting. This is the culmination of what the whole year has brought us to. And, we just can't wait to jump into it. And we're going to because the Super Bowl, it's one game, but the whole world is going to have their eyes on it. And we're going to start talking about it from the onset to its end. And we have so much just to cover, both sides of the ball, offense, defense, Chiefs, Niners. And so I just want to send out my side of it real quick. We have the best quarterback in the NFL, Patrick Mahomes. He is on for his third possible Super Bowl in 6 seasons. He's made it to the conference championships every year. Now he's in his third Super Bowl. He still has his main guy, Travis Kelce. You got a rookie in Rashee Rice. He's got a young running back in Isaiah Pacheco. But the biggest difference going into this Super Bowl is the defense for the Chiefs. They have just been absolutely dominant, which has never been the case in prior years. And they bring it to a Niners team who is also a top five defense in the league, as well as a top five offense. So I think there's just clashing with just major talent, and they're on the biggest stage of them all. And so I think all eyes will be on it, and it's going to be a battle of just the best in the league. Janoah, please tell the people about what you brought to us today about this coverage for this game.
Well, Justin, the Super Bowl is the biggest game of the year in all of sports, in my opinion. So I did some research and did a couple Super Bowl facts. I got about six for you, Justin. Just a couple facts to consider when you sit down and you watch Sunday night's meeting between the Kansas City Chiefs and the San Francisco 49ers. Starting off with number one here, the Chiefs all time have a 7-7 record versus the 49ers. So since the merger, 7-7. Joe Montana, this is still part of fact one. Joe Montana, one of the greats, top five quarterbacks of all time, played for both 49ers and Kansas City. Another fun fact that in that area, he played with the Chiefs while Steve Young was winning that Super Bowl that year in '94, Justin. So something to consider with fact one. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, it's just, bringing a guy like Steve Young and just that wild history that is now brought into 2024. It's an absolute clash and an absolute, honor, and it's historic to be, within that company. And it's just going to all show up on Sunday. And continue. It's just crazy stuff.
That Super Bowl that the 49ers won in '94 was the last time they held the Lombardi, Justin. With fact number two here, Patrick Mahomes is 3-0 versus the 49ers in all time, including postseason. The first time they played, it was, I think, Shanahan's first year. The second time was in Super Bowl 54, which brings us, Justin, to fact three. I'll get into the third meeting with them, but I'm going to get into the second meeting between Patrick Mahomes versus this 49ers team. This is fact three now. It was in Super Bowl 54 in Miami. The 49ers, Justin, led by 20-10 in the fourth quarter after Raheem Mostert. You remember that guy, Justin?
Of course.
Raheem Mostert, the starting running back for the Kansas City Chiefs, punches it in for a 20-10 lead in Super Bowl 54. Mahomes had two interceptions in that second half, Justin. And I believe that looking into that game with 7 minutes left of the fourth, if you're a 49ers fan, you're feeling great, right?
That's right.
Well, here's the thing. With 7:13 left in the fourth quarter, Justin, Patrick Mahomes on third down weaves a bomb to Tyreek Hill, 44 yards, which led to 1 out of 3 scoring drives in the fourth quarter. The Chiefs later rallied to win that game 31-20, with Jimmy Garoppolo coming up short, looking for Emmanuel Sanders deep and could not connect. What are your thoughts about that Super Bowl, Justin, in Miami? Do you remember anything watching it that night?
There's a couple big takeaways from that game. You know, Super Bowl just a handful of years ago. We saw Jimmy Garoppolo. He was their leader in San Francisco. You know, I know that that team and that system and scheme behind Kyle Shanahan is just viewed as a you can put in whoever you want there. But it was clear that Garoppolo wasn't, suited to be a Super Bowl quarterback. And I think, it's important to show that Brock Purdy, although he's Mr. Irrelevant, last pick in the NFL draft last year, he's shown much more star potential than Jimmy Garoppolo ever did. So I think, it's a different team in that aspect. And then on the flip side with the Chiefs, I remember a big, big game from Damian Williams. Was that correct? The running back for the Chiefs. He had
Absolutely.
2 touchdowns and 100 yards, which is bananas. And now they have Isaiah Pacheco, who is arguably a better running back. I mean, most people would consider that. So there's upgrades on both sides, and I think that's a different side of what we're looking at for this Super Bowl compared to the one 4 years ago. So yeah.
So for fact number 4, still kind of on the Super Bowl, they're wearing the same jerseys, Justin, with the Kansas City Chiefs wearing the red home jerseys and the 49ers wearing the white away jerseys with their gold pants, same uniform layout. Also for fact 4, looking at the starters here, we had Jimmy G lined up against Patrick Mahomes. You mentioned the running backs. Damian Williams had a great game that day, had 104 yards rushing, paired up with Mostert. And I'm looking at Debo here. There was Debo, a little bit of Tevin Coleman. I'm not sure if you remember Tevin Coleman, Justin, for rushing for the 49ers. Looking at the wide receiver skill set, Kendrick Bourne, who I believe was on the Patriots this year, led the 49ers in receiving in that game with only 42 yards, Justin. Looking across for the Chiefs, they had Tyreek Hill, they had Sammy Watkins, and they had Travis Kelce catching balls all over the field. Sammy Watkins as well had almost 100 yards with a 98. So with this pass catching now, I sort of think now, in Super Bowl 54, it was Tyreek Hill, Kelce, and Watkins. They had the edge, in my opinion, going into that game compared to a Kendrick Bourne, a rookie Debo Samuels, and an aging Emmanuel Sanders. I think now this time in Super Bowl 58, I think the 49ers have the edge offensively. There's a superstar there. What do you think, Justin? Do you agree?
Yeah, so that is an interesting point to say, like, just a total flipping of the skill positions on the wide receiver end, at least. You're saying Debo is a rookie. Now he's a bona fide stud. Brandon Ayuk hadn't been in the league yet. Now he is in the league, and he's a very good, arguably the leading receiver for the team. And then on the flip side, obviously no Tyreek Hill, that absolute superstar, is now replaced by a rookie and Rashee Rice, who has had a slower upbringing this season, but has gotten better along as the season has gone along. So it's definitely a worse cast for Mahomes, but I think it's important to know that they're still here. They're still in the Super Bowl with their worst cast that they've ever had, and it's on the back of Mahomes. And even in a slower season for Travis Kelce, they're still here. It's the defense that deserves a lot of props, but it's no coincidence that Mahomes is here for his third or his fourth Super Bowl appearance, and now his possible third win. So I think it's all goes back to Mr. GOAT himself. I said it here, and Sunday will be a stamp on it if he gets the victory.
Oh boy, what a take. A key takeaway that I love from what you just said, Justin, is Brandon Ayuk was not on the team in that Super Bowl for the 49ers. He gets drafted that draft. So the Chiefs win the Super Bowl that year. It's the pandemic. The 49ers draft in the first round and pick 25. That couple months later after that Super Bowl, they take Ayuk with the 25th pick. Great point, Justin. I forgot about that, and I love that point. Ayuk, an X factor in this Sunday's game. On to fact number 5, Justin. We're almost done here. And these final 2 facts are my favorite that I found. The last time the Kansas City Chiefs and the 49ers met up, now I mentioned Mahomes beat them in 2018. That's victory number 1. Mahomes' number 2 victory over the 49ers just happened that we just discussed in Super Bowl 54. The third time Mahomes won, he's 3-0 for the 49ers. That third matchup, Justin, was last season, not this past season, but the season before. Let me give you a couple of facts of that game, Justin. It was a Week 7 matchup in 2022. You know, this was the first season that Patrick Mahomes didn't have Tyreek Hill. And this was the first season that the 49ers made a move and got Christian McCaffrey. And this was Christian McCaffrey's first game with the 49ers, Justin. He just flew in. I think that week before he was with Carolina. I don't know if you remember this, Justin, but it was that Robbie Chosen incident when he was in Carolina. He got into it against the Rams in SoFi. And I believe that was the same week that McCaffrey was traded to San Francisco just a couple of days later. So they flew him in on that Friday. McCaffrey plays that first game, Week 7 in 2022. Now with that game, Justin, it got ugly quick. The Chiefs won 44-23. Mahomes was 423 yards, 3 touchdowns. And this is the first season, like I mentioned, without Tyreek Hill. But here's one thing that is very interesting. Very interesting. Now, I mentioned this was Christian McCaffrey's first game with the 49ers. Jimmy Garoppolo did start that game. However, you look down in the box score, there was 2 quarterbacks that actually statistically played that game, Justin. And it was actually Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy got in at garbage time. Remind you, this is a 44-23 game. Brock Purdy did show up in the game. He threw, I think he was in for a couple drives. You know, it was garbage time, I believe. He did throw an interception, and he did have only 66 yards passing, but that's just something to throw out. I just find that a little bit, I don't know if it's coincidence. McCaffrey's first game, Purdy's first couple drives against the 49ers. Now they're meeting up at Super Bowl 58. Justin, what are you thinking? What do you think? I had to know.
You know, those are some pretty interesting coincidences that McCaffrey's first game coming from Carolina, becoming a Niner, they get blown out by the Chiefs, but we get to see his first time in the gold and red, as well as Brock Purdy. And, you know, it seems kind of storybook that is happening. You know, and you know, we spoke about the teams meeting 4 years earlier in a Super Bowl. And, you know, I don't mean to reference it, but, you know, WWE, Cody Rhodes got to finish his story. He went to the big stage of it all. He lost, and now he's back. I know the whole Rock thing, but, you know, that could be the Niners. They really that's their big task ahead of them is the Chiefs. You know, it's kind of been held across from them. I know last year they lost to the Eagles, but that wasn't their own doing. You know, they lost because they had McCaffrey at quarterback for part of that game. So this has kind of been their biggest foe and biggest rival, even though they haven't beat them in the last three meetings. So it's a big, you know, statement game for the Niners. If they can win it and end the season at the top, it's just wonderful for them. It's a good story. Now I do want to point out, I mean, there's some things that are just storyline sometimes. You know, Taylor Swift, she's gonna fly in, watch this game. Imagine the viewership the NFL is going to get when the Chiefs raise the banner and Taylor Swift is on the field. I mean, I don't know why. I don't know why it just feels like that's going to happen. And to put some real stats behind it, you know, last week or 2 weeks ago in the conference championships, we saw the Chiefs allow 10 points to the MVP Lamar Jackson after they just put up over 30 on the Texans. And I mean, they made Lamar look like Tyrone Huntley. So it was just a total, you know, becoming a pumpkin again for Lamar Jackson. And then you look on the flip side, the opposite happened for the San Francisco 49ers. We saw Jared Goff throw for 273 and a score. We saw Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery. They hopped over 130 yards rushing combined and 2 scores. Jameson Williams had a 40-yard running touchdown. So we saw cracks in the Niners defense that we have not seen for the Chiefs. And I think, you know, the Chiefs are 3-0 against the Niners in their last 3 matchups. I think Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo and Patrick Mahomes have kind of that recipe that works against you know, against that team. So please continue on. Yeah, there's definitely some things to pull out there.
Great take, Justin. I totally agree. Before I get to this final fact, I just want to point out with what you said, the Chiefs defense is absolutely playing lights out. And when we get into our predictions part of the show in a little bit, I definitely want to go into a little bit about. I just want to me and you just discuss the Chiefs defense because they just been absolutely phenomenal, and it scares me a little bit for Purdy and this 49ers offense. We'll get to that in a second. The final fact, though, Justin, the final fact, which is my favorite of this one, that's why I put it last. If you talk about finishing the story, right? Kyle Shanahan has got to finish the story, Justin. Want to know why? Because his father has done it before. Little fact for you. In Super Bowl 32, this is the last one. Great fact. Mike Shanahan, which is Kyle Shanahan's father, Mike Shanahan's Denver Broncos matched up with Andy Reid's Kansas City Chiefs. Now, wait up a second. I know Andy Reid wasn't the head coach of the Green Bay Packers that year. He was the quarterback's coach in Green Bay under Mike Holmgren, who was the head coach of Green Bay, with the star quarterback, Brett Favre. 3 straight MVPs that year. He had won the Super Bowl the previous year with the Green Bay Packers. So they were the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, went into Super Bowl 32, matched up with Mike Shanahan's Broncos, led by John Elway. And I just think it's interesting that it's Mike Shanahan, right? The the head coach of Denver that year. And then it's Andy Reid, who's the quarterback's coach, who later became offensive coordinator for Green Bay. But also, there was a player on that Denver Broncos offense by the name of Ed McCaffrey, who's the father of Christian McCaffrey, who will be playing the Super Bowl. So, Mike Shanahan and Ed McCaffrey versus Andy Reid in 98. And now 2024, it'll be Kyle Shanahan with Christian McCaffrey versus Andy Reid in the Super Bowl. I just thought that was crazy to find that out. But that's my favorite fact. I love to find Super Bowl facts, guys. This is the best one I think you'll find for the next 5-10 years. Hopefully one of those facts is Texans winning a Super Bowl. But, hey, that's another thing for another day. But, hey, this was a great fact to find. Justin, what do you think about that? I have to know. I have to know.
It's just history always finds a way to make something just very important and even more special than it is. I mean, a Super Bowl in and of itself is just the best part of a season. And to bring in the fact that Christian McCaffrey's father, Andy Reid, who's the coach of the Chiefs, that happened 20-something years ago. Now we're back, and his son, and it's like facing off against the evil villain again. Even though Andy Reid is such a loving guy, I mean, we're back here, and I mean, all different faces, of course, but there's still two, and it all connects, and I think that's wild. Great find. You're killing it with the facts today. It's so important to bring up too, because there's so much that goes into a game like this, and I know it's only an hour on the game clock, but just everything is important, and anything can change the outcome of the game. So yeah. So and continuing on, we have to get our predictions in for this game. It's Sunday. It's big. Who's gonna win it? Will it be the finish the story 49ers? I feel like that's quote that there. Finish the story 49ers versus the Taylor Swift Chiefs. And the villains are going to win this game. It's the Chiefs. I think it's just the defense has been unbearable for opposing offenses, and defenses win championships. It's been stated. It's a very famous quote out there for teams around the league. Andy Reid is the best coach in football right now. Bill Belichick is going to be an analyst or something. So Andy Reid supplants him there for active best coaches. You have the best quarterback and you have the best tight end, along with the best defense in the game. So it's just too many things stacking up against the Niners. And so I'm going to put my score real quick. I think the game is going to be a punch slugfest. I think it's going to be 24-21 Chiefs. Janoah, let me hear your side.
Well, Justin, this is one of the toughest Super Bowl matchups to to just pick a winner. Looking at both sides here now, let's break it down. With Kansas City, their defense is playing a lights out. They're the reason why they are here. They were able to shut down Miami. We know we do have doubts about Tua. The next week, they go into Buffalo. And, hey, they absolutely, yes, Tyler Bassett missed a field goal, but they still held Josh Allen to 24 points when Josh Allen could have probably got you 35 or 40. You know, Josh Allen has those games. But no, and then they go into Baltimore and make which will be announced later this week, the runaway MVP in Lamar Jackson, limited him to only 10 points. And in a game where if you would have told me Patrick Mahomes wouldn't have scored in the second half, I would have told you, wow, Baltimore is so going to the Super Bowl. It's not even close, Justin. But then you look at the 49ers offense and you think, well, this is where, just a couple years ago, they were fighting to trade up for Trey Lance. It was the biggest story. They're going to get Mac Jones. They're going to get Justin Fields, or are the Jets not going to get Zach Wilson? It's just are they going to get Zach Wilson? So now it's a time where it was actually Mr. Irrelevant all along. Could he finish the story against the best quarterback in the league, the best coach in the league, the best tight end? You look at the 49ers, they have an all-star Hall of Famer running back. I don't think you look back to previous Super Bowl winning teams. I mean, Christian McCaffrey might be the best Super Bowl running back in the last 10 years, Justin. I don't think there's another running back who's played in the Super Bowl in maybe 5-10 years that was just an ultimate superstar running back. When you look at fantasy running backs, Justin, I don't think there's been a top 5 star in the Super Bowl. I'm not sure it could be. I think George Kittle is a great X factor in this game. They didn't have Ayuk in the last Super Bowl, and Debo was a rookie. And Debo has been through a lot now to get this point. It's really tough to pick a winner, Justin. I don't want to cut down Mahomes and say he's going to lose, but here's the thing, Justin. Just a little bit of me feels like this 49ers defense just reminds me, like I wasn't born in that era in the 80s when the 80s and 90s where the 49ers were winning 5 Super Bowls, but just Purdy gives me that Montana feel, a little bit of a Steve Young feeling where you can't count him out. He's going to play good. They have all-pro tight end George Kittle, who at the end of Super Bowl 54, he told you, I will be back and I will show my vengeance. Something like that. Go look it up. Kittle did say that when the Chiefs are ready to rain the parade and the confetti. You have Ayuk, and now it all goes down to Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan, Justin, this is the key to the game. This is the biggest if of the game. If Kyle Shanahan does not become aggressive, I personally feel like they should receive the ball. Do not give the ball to Mahomes to start the game. Do not kick it off to Mahomes. Fine, he'll get it in the second half. That's okay. Trust your defense after halftime. But I need the 49ers to come out aggressive. They need to come out aggressive, pound the football with McCaffrey, and do trick plays. Kyle Shanahan, this is your moment. You went to Super Bowl 51 with the Patriots in Houston, or against the Patriots in Houston with the Falcons, and you blew a 28-3 lead. You become the head coach of the 49ers, you blow a 20-10 lead. Kyle Shanahan, this is your moment. You need to come out aggressive. Use McCaffrey. This is why you traded for him. You have an all-pro left tackle in Trent Williams. This is your offense. This is your time. You have your quarterback. The reason why you didn't win in Super Bowl 54 because maybe Jimmy G isn't that great of a quarterback. Maybe Purdy is. So I need Shanahan, get the ball rolling. Let's go up 7-0. Trust our defense, and let's keep it going. Let's run it with McCaffrey. Let's not go away from the run. Let's not get cute and pass. Let's run, roll McCaffrey. I agree with you. The Chiefs do score 24 points in this contest, Justin, but I'm going to go with San Francisco scoring 2 more, with the 49ers winning 26-24. The reason why it's 26, I do have Moody missing an extra point. I think he did miss one against Green Bay, excuse me. I do think that late in the fourth, I just trust the 49ers to win. Justin, in these 2 games, they were down in the fourth quarter, third and fourth quarter in the second half, and they rallied in both games to win at home. Now, here in Las Vegas from Media Week, it does seem like that's going to be a lot of 49er faithful, Justin. It's going to be packed in Allegiant Stadium. But at the end of the day, I do have the 49ers winning 26-24. Can I get your MVP of the game before I think a little bit and decide with my MVP? Because there's a lot of talent here.
It's between 2 guys. And I'm going to say that none of which is Patrick Mahomes. I think it's because it's going to be a tough, lower scoring game. 3 touchdowns.
Okay.
3 touchdowns, yeah. Pacheco's going to get a touchdown. I think it's going to happen. And then it's going to be 2 Travis Kelce touchdowns. And it's going to be Kelce versus Chris Jones. Chris Jones is bound to get a sack or 2 in this game. If he forces a fumble and gets a major turnover, he's going to be up there, and he wants the payday. He wants the big game. And so I think it's Kelsey versus Chris Jones, and it's going to be Kelsey, and it's going to be Taylor Swift up there with him.
I love it, Justin. To be honest, if the Chiefs were to win this football game, it's going to be through Travis Kelsey. I predicted it going to the championship week that Travis Kelsey is going to have a big game in Baltimore, and he did. He did not disappoint. He made almost every catch when Mahomes needed it. He was. If they gave MVPs for championship weekends, no doubt Travis Kelsey is the MVP. Maybe a defensive MVP along with that game. If the Chiefs win, Justin, besides Travis Kelsey, I do agree it could be a defensive player. If I had to pick one, I would go Chris Jones, but a little sneaky one is Sneed. I think he's the cornerback safe against L'Jarius Sneed. I could be pronouncing that wrong. I do think if the Chiefs win this game, he'll probably have a couple interceptions, maybe a forced fumble, and about maybe I'd say maybe 4 or 5, maybe 6 tackles, solo tackles for. But for me, since I'm picking the 49ers, before I do want to say the Travis Kelsey pick is amazing. I do think Kelsey's gonna. I think the Chiefs, like I said, I hope Kyle Shanahan can come out fast, rolling. Let's score. Let's convert. Let's score now. Let's put the points. Let's put the pressure on Mahomes. But if not, if the Chiefs start or go that route, and they start scoring, it's going to be Kelsey, no doubt, starting things off. He's going to have that like Julian Edelman type game when Edelman won MVP. But looking at the 49ers, if I had to pick an MVP, I'm going to have to say it's Christian McCaffrey. He's going to need to get this offense going so it can open up the play action so Purdy can throw it to Kittle, to Debo, to Ayuk, and even Juwan Jennings, who here and there has some flashes, or even like a Ray McLeod. They need to get everybody involved. This is the game where you have to get everybody involved. This is your time, your shine, and it all goes to Christian McCaffrey. Another sneaky player is George Kittle. He is the X factor as well. He's going to need to get the ball moving as well. He's going to need to match Travis Kelsey in that game. But I do like Christian McCaffrey for about 90 yards rushing, maybe a total of 124, 25 yards with catching out of the backfield, and 2 touchdowns for Christian McCaffrey, as he'll be named Super Bowl MVP, in my opinion, Justin.
Yeah, McCaffrey is their star. He is their best offensive piece, and he's clearly all year. I think it was one game this season he didn't score a touchdown. So it's gonna funnel through him, and he does just about everything you can ask for as an offensive player. So it's a great selection. If you had to throw a guy from the defensive side that's gonna have a big game for the Niners, who would you throw out there?
Dre Greenlaw, he's going to need to absolutely step it up for the 49ers. Now, we're not really sure who's going to be covering Travis Kelsey. It could be Fred Warner, could be L'Jarius Sneed, could be the safeties that they had back there. Another little fact here, Charvarius Ward, I believe his name is, he played with the Chiefs in Super Bowl 54. Maybe he can offer some advice how to beat them with the San Francisco 49ers. It's definitely going to have to be Dre Greenlaw, Justin. He's been having a couple good games in the postseason, so look for Dre Greenlaw, number 57 for the 49ers.
No, if he or Fred Warner can lock down Travis Kelsey, because those are some of their big stars on defense, that will be a major turning point in this game. And I will like that speech you gave earlier for the Niners. They gotta throw that in all the microphones in that locker room. They need to hear it. Stop playing scared ball. That's too much of what losing teams do. And so. Yeah, don't play scared, San Francisco. A lot of the world on your side here. But okay, pass just getting the scores in and all these amazing, in-depth coverages. I want to jump into the betting side of things because it's a big part of Super Bowl Sunday. Like that's a lot of money's going into. I already got a bunch of picks for this game. And so I want to throw out some higher lows that are on Underdog Fantasy. And I just want to hear your takes on them because I got overs and I got unders in both of these. So I want to start with Kelsey. Is he scoring a touchdown?
Absolutely, Justin. He's a lock. He scored a touchdown in both of Kansas City Chiefs, 2 Super Bowls in the Mahomes era. And if you look at the Super Bowl they lost against Tampa Bay, he was a beast in that game, Justin. I think he had about 11 catches, about 115, 20 yards. I'm not too sure about that, but I know he was a factor in that game. So Kelsey is a big-time player, big-time baller. He's going to definitely score a touchdown in this game, no doubt.
Great. Now I'm interested to hear your take on this one because I had some trouble deciding which way I was going to go. It was over and I was under, and the pick here is Brandon Ayuk going to get higher or lower than 60 and a half receiving yards?
60? Yes. Yes. I think Ayuk can finish with about 80 to 85 yards. I do think he gets a touchdown. I do think he gets a touchdown. I think definitely Ayuk gets 60 yards plus. 80 to 85, he could have 100, no doubt.
Wow, so I'm jumping the under for Brandon Ayuk, and it's just for a guy you mentioned earlier, L'Jarius Sneed. He's known for shadowing one wide receiver in a game. And with Deebo Samuel always running around, moving to the backfield, moving to the slot, Brandon Ayuk is the one receiver that they'll probably slap L'Jarius Sneed onto. And so I think just him having a chokehold over Ayuk in this game is going to kind of keep him out of it. And so I put the under for Brandon Ayuk. So that's what I think. Now another really important one for the quarterbacks. Both yardage totals, they're very interesting to talk about here. Mahomes is over 261 and a half, and Purdy's is 247 and a half. What are your thoughts on those? I can repeat it again if you need it.
You said 260 for Mahomes.
That's right. And
I'm
247.
going a little under for Mahomes. I'm going to go 240 to 245 for Mahomes. And for Purdy, I think he gets about 256. I do think that if the 49ers somehow dangerously get down in this game, it's definitely going to have to be the Purdy game. Dump off passes to Debo, dump off passes to McCaffrey. If they're getting blown out, I definitely feel like Purdy will probably maybe stat pad, probably play like comeback and potentially get 300 yards. But definitely under on Mahomes and over on Purdy.
Wow. So, that's a very interesting point to make, that the Chiefs have kind of been a team that they could be up on the Niners, or at least we've seen the Niners be a team where they've been down and have come back to be victorious in games. So that would be a scenario where Purdy's going to have to throw a lot more. And in saying that, I had overs for both. And so I think, Mahomes, he actually hasn't hit 261 in his last two games. But that was against Baltimore and that was against Buffalo, which, Buffalo you can kind of throw on without Tre'Davious White in the building. But I think, they're just going to both have commands of their offense, and I put overs. And in doing so, as you were talking about with Purdy being over, I put an over on Christian McCaffrey's receiving total, which is 34 and a half yards. I feel like that's kind of a gimme. He's going to be a major player, dump offs, and because of how good the secondary has been for the Chiefs, Purdy's going to rely on Mr. Reliable.
Absolutely. I feel like also I did say McCaffrey is going to be MVP of this game, but Purdy has to be that guy to convert on key second downs and key third downs, because I feel like the Chiefs smell blood in the water if you're not able to convert on second down, as they did versus Lamar Jackson, Justin. And I feel like now in this Super Bowl, Purdy's going to have to convert. He did it against Green Bay when they were down. He did it against Detroit when they were down. Even converting on the legs, Justin, converting 2nd and 6, or even trimming the yardage, to make it a 3rd and short, so that way McCaffrey can punch it in. They might even use Elijah Mitchell just on a couple downs, maybe to give C-Mac, a break. Purdy's going to also have to play. He's going to have to be Tom Brady. He's going to have a great game. He's going to have to be able to, call the plays and audible and figure out, okay, this ball needs to go to Debo. This one needs to go to Kittle. This one needs to go to Ayuk. Or you know what? Let's go all in with McCaffrey. Purdy's going to need to figure it out, because, the Chiefs defense, once they smell blood in the water, Justin, they absolutely they can stop you. They have that sneaky Patriots feel to them where, Tom Brady might not be doing anything, but the Chiefs defense, or the Patriots defense, is getting stops. And that's how the Patriots were able to win, 6 Super Bowls. And that's how they were able to come back 28-3 because of defensive stops, giving the ball back to Tom Brady, just like Mahomes. So if you're Purdy, if you're Shanahan, you gotta come out starting this game, calling your best plays. And I mean your best plays, Justin. Everybody said that, Kyle Shanahan is that offensive guru like Andy Reid. Well, he's going to have to show it immediately all game and all 4 quarters of the football game, Justin.
Yeah, and a big thing, at least in the conference championships for the Niners, was Purdy used his legs. 48 rushing yards in that game, a couple major 3rd down conversions because of his legs. And so though that's going to be another interesting part of his game. And I think, if he can use that successfully as long along with all of his weapons, it can be a very close game. And I want to end the Super Bowl talk because we still have more past this. In DraftKings, who's your captain? Who is the captain pick for you?
Well, I have two, Justin, so far, and I will make some on pregame. Super Bowl Sunday, my favorite thing is to sit down, snack on some chips, some dips, and make a couple more parlays and DraftKings lineups. But for the two I have right now, Justin, one of my captains is the Chiefs defense, just in case it's that Rams and Patriots type Super Bowl where it's two pretty good teams and pretty good offenses, but it's just a low scoring game and defensive stops. So I do have the Chiefs and my captain as one of them. The second one I have, I'm having Purdy in it. Like now I just mentioned, I do think if the Chiefs win this game, they go up a couple scores towards the end of the third, going to the fourth. And I think the Chiefs have, if they win, I think 49ers, but if the Chiefs were to win, I feel like they'll have a pretty good lead on the 49ers with the last 5 or 6 minutes of the game. And I just see Purdy pretty much dropping back every play, throwing it. I feel like he'll convert to Kittle, to Aiyuk, and he'll stack up those points because little by little, he'll probably get 300 yards, 3 touchdowns to keep the game close. But then the Chiefs will pull away if it goes that route. Or it could be a route where I think that Purdy keeps him in the game most of the time, and he kind of has that like Nick Foles type thing in Super Bowls where he's still scoring. Like, wow, the Patriots score, but no, Nick Foles is scoring again. So you got to think of the Patriots as the Chiefs, and you got to look at all the previous Patriots Super Bowls. And so I like Purdy. I do like Purdy. Looking into last year's Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts, he did have a couple rushing touchdowns, but he did have a couple touchdowns where he threw down the field. I think he had one to A.J. Brown. I think he had a bomb down the field to Devontae Smith. When you look at Garoppolo didn't play all that well. We do know the type of quarterback Garoppolo is. Garoppolo is he didn't have those targets that they had in Super Bowl. They didn't have great targets Super Bowl 54 as they do now. So I kind of like Purdy going into this game. One now that I'm currently making, just try to fit everything. I do like Travis Kelce. I know he's a little bit pricey. Looking at, I would say 15 grand for a captain on DraftKings, Justin. But anything else, I love Travis Kelce on all parlays. I would recommend if you're doing parlays, use Travis Kelce as a fantasy score parlay. Don't do just receiving yards or a touchdown. Do it all because Kelsey's going to give you eight to nine catches. He's going to get you about 60 to 80 yards, and he's going to get you possibly a touchdown or two, Justin.
Yeah, so you took the words right out of my mouth. I was going Travis Kelce. The fact that he has such high touchdown upside as a tight end, it's important to take away. And you're right, he is an expensive piece, but he's a well worth it piece. I think another pick for it could be Isaiah Pacheco for the Chiefs as well. I
Yeah.
think the ground game is kind of what we saw in Super Bowl 54 for the Chiefs with Damian Williams. He had over 100 yards and two scores, and Pacheco is just a better runner. So if they become successful in that regard, Pacheco could be a really good piece as a captain. And then on the 49er side, I do agree Brock Purdy. If they're down, he's going to need to throw. If the run game's not working, he's going to need to throw. And I think those two are probably more likely options or scenarios for Purdy in this game. And so I think Purdy's a good, if you're going on the Niners side, to bet.
I do have to say one last thing for this game. There's two players we did not mention that I feel like they're flying a little bit under the radar, and it's Nick Bosa and Chase Young. These are going to be the edge rushers trying to stop Patrick Mahomes. I'm very curious to see which one of them performs better. One of those two guys are going to need to bother Mahomes. One or two or both. These are two edge rushers that are pretty top of the food chain, as you say, and if they have a great game, they're going to have to get to Mahomes. But the tricky part is Mahomes could go up the middle and work a little bit of Mahomes magic. So I'm very, very intrigued to see the 49ers D-line going up against that Chiefs offensive line and trying to get to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, totally. The defense, and Nick Bosa has always been a hound for the ball, and Chase Young, although underutilized in Washington, has always shown star capabilities. So they are definitely two big players that can make Patrick Mahomes' life a little uneasy. So, yeah, that great coverage. We're gonna move on to some really relevant Dween Sports daily news. We got the two final vacant head coaching spots have been filled. And we're also going to talk about some of the important offensive and defensive coordinators that we think could really shape up 2024 fantasy football. So let's start off in Seattle. We got Mike Macdonald from the Baltimore Ravens. So they lose in the conference championships. And not so long after, he's hired as the Seattle Seahawks head coach. And the Seahawks become the youngest led head coach team. Mike Macdonald is 36. And the interesting fact from that is that they had the oldest head coach on their team in Pete Carroll. So now it's flipped, and they're now just a new era for the Seahawks. And even in his opening press conference, they said he is the future of coaching in this league and for their team. So he showed in Baltimore that he can raise up a really good defense. And I think although Baltimore has always had a very strong defense, every season, Mike Macdonald had one of the better seasons on the field for the defense. He really revived Jadeveon Clowney's career, and Jason Matabuk had a career season. Marlon Humphrey's always great, and just great players all around. And he got them to show more of it. So I'm very happy with the hire. They have a lot of good pieces in Seattle with Devin Witherspoon, Tariq Woolen, if they keep Bobby Wagner. And then it will come down to who they get on the offensive side, because we saw Geno Smith come back down to earth, but past just him, the rest of the team is stacked with you. I want you to mention more, DK and the rest of the team. So yeah, what are your thoughts on the hire?
Well, Justin, when it comes to the Seattle Seahawks, I'm a big fan of their backfield. I love Kenneth Walker. I love Zach Charbonnet. If they can do a little bit of what Detroit did with Gibbs and Montgomery, I am loving Seattle going into next year. When you look at the receivers, Metcalf is a stud. He's going to be a top 10 to potentially top 50. I don't top 10, top 15 fantasy wide receiver. Tyler Lockett towards the end of the year was a little bit quiet. We're not used to getting that from Tyler. I do think he will bounce back, but the emergence of Jackson Smith and Jigba, he sort of turned it on. I think he scored about 4 to 5 touchdowns in the last 6 games for the Seattle Seahawks. But the question is always, like you mentioned about Geno Smith, it's always going to come down to the quarterback. With the Seahawks, you're getting Mike Macdonald, and I think he can establish a Legion Boom-esque defense, that culture in Seattle. But it all goes down to the quarterback. I feel like Geno Smith is good, but is he going to show up against the NFC champions 49ers or the Rams, who made the playoffs, or the Cardinals, who should not be looked over? I think if they can work a little bit, they should be good. They're solid, slightly solid, the Arizona Cardinals. We can get to that later, but can the Seahawks get their franchise quarterback? I did mention a couple weeks ago, Penix, maybe bring the hometown kid home. Maybe a Bo Nix, who's not that far away from Seattle. Maybe trade up for a Drake May. I mean, there's just so many quarterbacks. I just don't think. If I'm Seattle, I'll keep Geno in to start the season, but I will draft the quarterback. It's kind of like that Kansas City thing. Alex Smith was good, but was he the guy that was going to bring Kansas City to the Super Bowl where they are now with Mahomes? And that was a team that drafted Mahomes while having a pretty decent quarterback. So can the Seahawks do something like that? That's going to be very interesting to see come April when the draft starts, Justin.
Yeah, so I completely agree. I week one, I have no doubt Geno Smith will be the starter. But I do think they will dive into the draft. Pick a guy that can be the next franchise star for them. Michael Penix comes to mind. Bo Nix, possibly. He played in Oregon, so not too far off. And so I like those ideas. I know they have a middle of the teens type of pick for the draft, I believe. So they'll have to move up to get a guy like Jaden Daniels or May or Caleb Williams. But even if they can take a shot on Spencer Rattler, we saw him in the Senior Bowl this past week. He had 4 for 4, 65 yards and a score, was the MVP of that game. So his draft stock is rising, and I think it's important to know if they don't get any of those big names. So yeah, that things are looking up for them. Holistically, we still need to see who they get on the offensive side, who's going to call plays, because that's important for fantasy.
Mhm.
And that's going to be a similar thing with what we saw in Washington. We saw the hiring of Dan Quinn. He was the defensive coordinator for the last few years for the Dallas Cowboys, and prior to that, he was the Atlanta Falcons head coach, which we saw him go to a Super Bowl with Matt Ryan and Julio Jones. Everybody remembers that Super Bowl, 28-3. And then prior to that, he was the defensive coordinator for the Seahawks and during the Legion of Boom era. So a lot of history with Dan Quinn, and now he gets his second head coaching gig. And Janoah, what are your thoughts?
Yikes, 28-3 still haunts me a little bit, Justin, just because it was in my city and I was going for Atlanta. But hey, the greatness of Tom Brady took over. Anyways, to answer your question, Justin, with Dan Quinn, there's a lot of ups with him and there's been a lot of downs with Dan Quinn. I mean, where do I even begin with him? I do believe that these past two seasons, uh, just these two seasons specifically with Dan Quinn, with the Dallas Cowboys, I feel like they took a very big step forward defensively. The emergence of Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, and even Vander Esch became a great tackler. There was players that they developed, like Deron Bland, who had 5 or 6 pick sixes this past season, and that credit goes to Dan Campbell, or Dan Quinn, excuse me. So sorry, Justin. But also, you look at Seattle's Legion of Boom. They had a young um, Richard Sherman and Earl Thomas, and Bobby Wagner was very young. They had a great pass rushing defense. It was that young core. So I feel like Dan Quinn is a great defensive coordinator, but when he's in head coach, I think he sort of just steps away from that defense, Justin, because I didn't really see it with Atlanta. They never really had top defense. Otherwise, they'd have in Lombardi. There would never be no 28-3. So I just feel like now with Dan Campbell, Ron Rivera was a defensive guy. So I do think that Dan Campbell or Dan Quinn is going to have to be playing two roles now. Adjusting this offense because there's some good playmakers, but also rebuilding this defense because looking at this defense, there's a couple good D tackles with Allen and Payne, but you just don't know what else you're going to get. So I do think Washington has a lot to do this offseason. They're going to be possibly last in the division this upcoming year, with Philly going to probably be back and better, with Dallas going to be a little bit of on a revenge tour, and who knows what the Giants are going to do? Maybe they'll be a little bit better than Washington going into next year. So I truly believe that Dan Quinn is really going to have to reshape this whole team. Who knows what they're going to do at quarterback? I like Sam Howell. I think you go another year with him, but who knows? They might pull a surprise and draft somebody. But um, Washington, Justin, to answer your question, is going to be one of those teams that kind of gave me that Tampa Bay, Arizona feeling going into this past season, where I'm not really sure what I'm getting with them, but I'm probably going to put them at the bottom of the draft order in 2025. So I think that's where I'm going. Not a big fan like I am with Seattle, but who knows? Maybe Dan Quinn can bring the Commanders to the playoffs as a 7th seed next year.
Yeah. So my thoughts on that is just the fact that I think he had some success in Atlanta. You are correct. It wasn't a defensive success. We saw Matt Ryan have an MVP season, and we saw Julio Jones be Julio Jones as his star. I mean, when he was a superstar. So
Yeah.
I think going into a new head coaching gig, he brings in Kliff Kingsbury. With the whole drama where he was going to the Raiders, then he got a call, come to Washington. We have the number 2 pick. We're gonna get Caleb Williams. You just worked with him. I think there's a connection there, and that could be a possibility. Because they do have the number 2 pick. I surely hope they go quarterback, which I'm pretty certain they will. They have such good options there at number 2. They could move up to number 1 if they really want Caleb Williams. So I think Dan Quinn is being gifted a franchise quarterback on day 1. They have some recruiting to do. They have good offensive pieces. So I'm kind of excited about the offense. I know this team is not a Super Bowl team, and it will never be a Super Bowl team under Dan Quinn. So count down 6 years, and he'll probably be fired. I do though think he'll have some success with this team with Kliff Kingsbury, who he wasn't a good head coach, but I think he's a darn good coordinator. He kind of He led a pretty successful offense in Arizona for a little while. You know, they had good offensive seasons where they were pretty electric, and then they'd fall off. I think that's going to be the story for Washington, with whoever heads the offense at quarterback. But he has pieces. You know, I know they kind of fire sailed, at the deadline this year, getting rid of Chase Young and Montez Sweat, which will hurt them in the long run, especially this season. But they have Brian Robinson, a good piece. But I mean, they have a fine roster. It's bringing in the right coach, and I don't think that's the right coach per se. I think it's a solid coach. I'll give him a B minus kind of grade. Um, but he's not like a franchise altering guy in
Yeah.
my opinion. But I do like Kliff Kingsbury, and moving from an NFC East team, another NFC East team added an offensive coordinator, and that was the Philadelphia Eagles with Kellen Moore. And I know we talked about this more recently about a possible Derrick Henry addition. It's clear he's on his way out of Tennessee. Another interesting point to make is that Kellen Moore, he's always led a very strong offense. This Eagles team has a strong offensive line, and the tush push might get banned. So why not bring in the biggest running back, and instead of pushing Jalen Hurts in, just let Derrick Henry do it himself, and run it in. So I really think that could be an interesting signing. So first, let me get your take on Derrick Henry possible idea just threw out there, and also just the hiring of Kellen Moore as the OC.
Yeah, absolutely. When you have a DeAndre Swift who's more of a speed back, and now you have the potential to add a Derrick Henry who's a power back, bell cow, absolutely for Philly. If I'm Philly, I'm adding as much talent as I can. I feel like the window is always going to be wide open with Jalen Hurts. I just want to say, Dween Nation, I am one of the biggest Jalen Hurts believers you'll ever find. I will die on the mountain with Jalen Hurts until he is retired and he's done playing football forever. Until then, I will pick Jalen Hurts to win another conference championship, another Super Bowl appearance. When you have him at quarterback, I think you can win any football game. He is a big time playmaker. Was in the Super Bowl last year. If you can add Derrick Henry to go along with the Swift, to go along with the pretty decent running game that Philly was able to maintain up until about week 14, where they kind of just went downhill. I definitely think you add Derrick Henry. As far as Kellen Moore, I think he was orchestrating a pretty good offense this past year in LA. I was never the biggest Brandon Staley fan, so I didn't really trust the Chargers that much. Although I'm a big Herbert fan, so I do think he can really transform the offense in Philly in different ways. I do think if the tush push gets banned, I love Kellen Moore to develop more of a better passing game, just because I seen Kellen Moore, had really good passing attacks with Dallas. And even with LA this past year, Keenan Allen was on a tear for like the first 10 weeks, Justin. He was absolutely a beast. They didn't really have Eckler most of the year. He was in and out of the lineup. I think you mentioned, who was the backup running back for the Chargers? You mentioned, was it Justin Jackson or
Josh Kelly. Josh Kelly.
Josh Kelly? You said, yeah, that's right. I remember you mentioning that he scored week 1. He had a couple good games here and there. I do think now when you look at Kellen Moore, you can't really put him on the pedestal in LA because Herbert did go out for the past 4 to 5 games of the season. Keelan Allen was hurt at the end of the season, and they had lost Mike Williams like in week 3 or 4, Justin, and he was on a tear. The game that Mike Williams got hurt, he was having a great game, and then he had tore his ACL. So I definitely love Kellen Moore in Philly. The question is, does AJ Brown want to stay in Philly? I do remember last week, I think he commented on it, saying that he was just scrubbing his IG just to clean it up. So yeah, I'll take AJ Brown's word for it. I don't know why you would want to leave a Jalen Hurts and playing alongside Devontae Smith, who still has a lot of potential to be a great receiver in this league, Justin. So looking all it when you add all that together and you look all it from the top, I love Kellen Moore and I love the addition of Derrick Henry. And you know what? I love the Eagles next year, Justin. I will always pick Jalen Hurts. I'm the biggest Jalen Hurts fan and the biggest Jalen Hurts believer. So absolutely, Kellen Moore will kill it in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and as you know, I'm a big Eagles fan as well. My mom's from Philly. I literally got my Jalen Hurts jersey standing right over there, 10 feet from me. So I do believe that this offense is in line to improve a lot. With Kellen Moore, Kellen Moore came into a Chargers offense, as you mentioned, like they were pretty good early on. When they had their full assortment of weapons with Eckler, and Keenan Allen had some monster games along with Mike Williams. He had really good games until he tore his ACL, and then Eckler got hurt after week 1. Josh Kelly obviously isn't a lead back, so we saw him struggle. And then we saw Herbert get injured, and that was just kind of the nail in the coffin for the season for them. And then, any good things that could happen in Los Angeles for the Chargers was masked by Brandon Staley. So he's now with Nick Sirianni, who's a real believer and a real, energizer. And so he has a great quarterback still, Jalen Hurts. He's got a great wide receiver cast of weapons with, AJ Brown, Smith, and Goddard. And AJ Brown, I don't know why he'd want to leave. I know the rumors there. He is a diva. I bet he maybe scrubbed his Insta for a little bit of attention, but there's no way he'd be leaving. He's too important to them, and I mean, you can't ask for a better spot. It's like, Tyreek Hill asking. Oh, actually, he could leave because Tua is not that great, but it's like, just the best player in a best team. I mean, they were 10-1. They were 10-1. They're totally fine. They just had, a collapse that was unlike anything a lot of teams have seen before. So I think AJ Brown is fine. He'll be there. Kellen Moore is a good hire. I know some people are like, oh, like the Chargers sucked. Like, why is he gonna be a good move? I mean, first he's gonna inherit a better roster, a better staff, and just about everything. The O line, even with Jason Kelsey retiring, is still a top 5, top 10 O line. And then, throwing in the Derrick Henry, I don't know, that's just a fan theory from my head that I think could be good. I know actually last offseason there was talks about him being traded to Philadelphia before. I mean, obviously he stayed in Tennessee for this season, but he averaged 4.2 yards a carry behind arguably the worst offensive line in the Tennessee Titans, and now he could go to Philadelphia and I mean average 6-7 yards a carry. I wouldn't be totally surprised by that. I mean, we saw he struggled from time to time, but he's not completely washed. He's not Eckler washed, which we'll get into. I know in the next couple weeks, by the way, just to preview, we're gonna talk about so much. I kind of want to label it just like a performance reviews, just review of what this past season was for a lot of players, and outlook for 2024, along with free agency hits in a month. We're not that far out, and then the draft's a month after that. So there's so much coverage that's on the way. By the way, and I'm just I'm just excited about that, especially with free agency. So many rumors and theories to jump into, which I'm very excited about. We're very excited about that at Dween Sports, and Dween Nation. Just keep bringing it on. We love every second of it. So we're gonna keep doing it, and we're really excited. We had our first video episode, which everything will get better as time goes on, and I'm just excited about this Sunday. We got the big Super Bowl, and we talked about it for 40 minutes, and we could talk about it for 40 hours. We want you guys to hear from us and hear about just the sport we love, and the game. Like, there's just so much intrigue in this game, and it feels good sometimes, after a grueling 4 months of fantasy football, to really relax and see, the best two teams play out in front of our very eyes, along with, I know it's not for everybody, but definitely me. I'm going to be watching those Super Bowl commercials. I'll even watch some Usher, feel some nostalgia with Usher.
Oh yeah.
And so, it's going to be a great weekend. Uh, we're going to have this out. I think we're recording tonight on Wednesday, and it'll be out on Thursday. I mean, hopefully, no problems there. We're going to get it out for everybody to hear, because you need to hear this. You're putting money down for these games, and if you want to get it right, you got to listen to these two right here, us two. So, take a listen. We're going to be on YouTube, as you're going to be listening to it right here on YouTube, as well as Spotify and Apple podcast. And so we're just excited, and we're so happy about this episode. And Janoah, send us out, because I think that is all we got for today.
Justin, what a great episode. Dween Nation, oh my goodness, we're just a couple nights away from the biggest game of the year, the final two teams left remaining, fighting to hoist the Lombardi. Justin, I'm with you on everything you said. I'm with you, man. I cannot wait for Sunday. I'm going to be glued to my TV, commercials, halftime, every single play in the Super Bowl, and we'll be able to be right back here, Justin, to review the game, break it down. Dewey Nation, it was an honor tonight to be with Justin and to videotape our first video podcast. And we love you, Dewey Nation. Go have a great Sunday. This is the last football game for the next, 5-6 months, Justin. And we'll be on to free agency and the draft and fantasy. And that's what it starts with. Now we're here for the final two teams, Justin. Dewey Nation, we love you guys. And thank you for listening to us. Justin?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Totally. Thank you for calling it out. Fantasy football is a 365-day sport. I know we have no games for 6 months after Sunday, but it never stops. And the joy never stops. Free agency is so exciting. And then you have the draft, and then you had the schedule release, and then you got camp, and then you got the season. So it's going to come faster than you think. So just enjoy every moment you got with it. And so thank you guys. Thank you, Dween Nation. And, don't be fearing. Listen to your wonderful host here. So y'all have a good night. And thank you so much.